Are you shameless?
Pretty shameless, yeah.
I'm building quite the case for you being a narcissist. I haven't figured out my sitting situation very well, so I've just been hunching like this.
You need to get a kneeling chair, I feel.
What's a kneeling chair?
I can show you. Yeah.
Are you in a kneeling chair?
I am.
Wait, so how are you sitting on that then?
So you sit on this top bit. And
yeah.
Then the knee pads are the bit at the front, so you kneel into those.
So in every video you've been kneeling?
Yeah.
Why? What's the reason? I mean, I like it, but...
It's good for your posture. Like, so right now I'm stood, and then I'm knelt.
Now I am knelt. That's so you. Oh, you can rock.
Yeah, and it keeps you moving. It's just good for you.
Yeah, this is like old self where we used to sit on the bed and like all of our body parts would get so stiff. I really do need to figure out a different chair situation.
I miss old self though.
I know. And I need to stop like having to rearrange my entire living room every time I film. Because I want to be in this
embrace
spot.
The chaos.
Does anyone want to buy me a kneeling chair? Well, hi Nemo, welcome to our collab that we're doing today.
Hi.
I just wanted an excuse to film with you because we've been FaceTiming a bunch and I'm like, we should at least make a video and make money.
And we've been hanging out in person.
And we are now biological siblings. And Nemo came to my Christmas, which was lovely.
Your mum adopted me.
Yeah, I think so. Great. Okay, so why are we here?
We're here to address the distinct lack in the ex-Mormon community of agony aunts, people to sit here and listen to your woes and your trepidations and provide unsolicited, unqualified, and probably unhelpful advice.
Speak for yourself, Nemo. I am a certified life coach practicing for 5 years.
I'm absolutely speaking for myself.
But do you actually think there's a lack of agony aunts? I feel like there's quite a lot of advice giving in the ex-woman space. Dare I say too much in some contexts?
Perhaps, but I don't feel like there's a call-in show or a show that takes questions. There's no
And this also not a call-in show yet.
No, absolutely not. We'll work on that. But yeah, there's nothing out there for people to be like, here's what's bothering me about being an ex-Mormon this week. Oh, wise sage, what say you? And then Sam says things and I nod approvingly.
Yeah. And you just say like one tiny sentence and because of your accent, everyone's like, he's so smart. He is so smart.
I mean, you have the same accent, Sam. Do you not benefit from the same?
Well, I'm not a man, so I think that is that can sort of go either way.
That could bring us into our first question. How do I get listened to as a woman outside of Mormonism?
Oh,
and I said that as I cut you off, so really sorry about that.
That's our first question. We're diving in. That is a big one. I mean, obviously there's only so much you can do about the existence of patriarchal men and all that. But I do think the biggest thing for ex-Mormon women is figuring out how to sort of assert the way that you sort of demand to be treated. Like I think learning your own boundaries and asserting them diligently is a pretty big piece of it. And when I say boundaries, I also mean like energetic boundaries, like if a man says something shitty, it's understandable to jump to like defensiveness, but I think that's something to really look out for because the truth is that there's nothing to defend. You don't have to defend yourself. And I think like it's more powerful a lot of the time to just like energetically not allow it, like just be like, what was that? We just started filming, so my brain's still warming up. But
oh, sorry, I'm a Mormon man. I just zoned out when you started talking.
I completely blanked out.
I think there is a responsibility for men here too, obviously, to recognize what they may have unwittingly even absorbed from their Mormon upbringing. You grow up in a system where you are in charge and listened to almost without question a lot of the time. And so even though you may stop believing in the church, you may not stop acting in that way unless you kind of think about it a bit more and realize that you need to kind of open up some space and make it easy. I'm thinking of particularly, married men after Mormonism.
Yeah, what did you find? I know we've had conversations about this, but like, what did you see in yourself in terms of patriarchal mindsets, things that were sort of sticking around in you after leaving?
It was like a real concerted effort to sort of, I don't like the word deconstruct because it sounds glib and a bit like a faddy thing, but I guess that is the most accurate way to describe it, is sort of deconstructing that dynamic, taking it apart, pulling apart that dynamic and, you know, actively having conversations about, okay, what does our relationship look like now? Because we very much existed within a dynamic where I was in charge.
Mm,
Or there was, even though we tried very hard to be equals, even as a Mormon couple, there's just that underlying sort of gendered narrative that does exist within the church, and you kind of, like I said, absorb even if you're trying really hard to be more egalitarian as a couple. So
mm.
it's
Yeah,
having that conversation.
and it can vary couple to couple, and I feel like that can sometimes make certain men sort of resistant to understanding patriarchy because, for example, I'd say in my marriage, like I was sort of the brat who would a lot of the time be I don't know if controlling is the right word, but sort of like the more dominant one in certain ways. Because I guess like only child, didn't grow up in Mormonism. I've just kind of always leaned more uh that like I had to really walk back my sort of, well, assertiveness and to some degree narcissism in the last 10 years as I've done a lot of healing. Like I feel like in my marriage, my ex-husband was more of like the caretaker type, whereas typically that like gender thing is reversed. But I do think you also do see it a lot in Mormonism where, you know, the woman can be the one who sort of is more dominant or whose feelings take
Mm,
center stage in certain ways. And so I think that can make men be like, well, so I'm not patriarchal, like women are like kind of terrible, or, you know. But so you do have to recognize that there's like every relationship has kind of its own dynamics at play.
mhm,
Also, it's kind of tough because, yeah, men have the power in Mormonism in theory, but it's also like you're still supposed to go along with this like authoritarian system overall. So
mm.
it's like, yeah, you as a man had power, but also only in as much as this system
Yeah,
gave it to you, as long as
you
you
have
are
power
adhering
until
to
you
its
don't.
principles.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that the final thing I'd say on this is that, and I think we've maybe spoken about this before, maybe sat in a hotel room in London. I think on that live stream, maybe we talked about how uh, the sort of equality that I strove for um, in marriage was very much like a sort of, it was me permitting things rather than it being almost
Mm,
genuinely equal. It's like, okay, well, I'm allowing us to have this equal relationship. It's my sort of right to give it up almost. That's kind of what
yeah.
forms the background of it. Is, you know, this is my position, this is my authority to give over or to make us equal. Whereas actually, what is truly equal is understanding that it is for both of us to make these decisions. It's not for me
Mm,
to benevolently give away some of my authority to my spouse, you know?
yeah, that's interesting. I also feel like that highlights how much, I mean, so much of this all depends on what our own internal narratives are, which is why I really
Mhm,
would encourage women to kind of start from within and because I think it's so easy for women to be in the early stages of trying to almost like claim their power. I think it can be easy for them to get, for example, like get into unnecessary fights or get into sort put
mhm.
allow themselves to be in defensive positions that they don't need to be in because it's like you've got nothing to prove. I feel like I mean, yeah, as I was just saying, like the way I've historically been, I've just always from childhood believed that like I had the right to assert myself, I suppose. Like even though I was like obedient in Mormonism and to my leaders, generally speaking, um, yeah, I just think like the way that your especially your early childhood, I imagine, went is sort of going
Mm.
to determine like your default. So you
Yeah.
got to sort of figure out your own defaults.
And you didn't grow up Mormon, so
I know.
yeah,
And I
got that
had a single
convert vibe.
mother for most of my life, which I think,
Mm,
not to say that she was like some radical feminist by any means, but I do think there's just a degree of like women's
mm.
capabilities that you're going to see if you have like a single mother, you know?
Yeah, I grew up with a single mother from
Oh,
about the
yeah.
age of 6. So yeah,
Yeah, we
I
have that in
attribute that
common.
to a lot of my outlooks on
Yeah.
women and what they're capable of. And yeah,
They can do stuff
nice.
too.
They can. They can.
Mm.
Even vote now.
It's crazy the shit that they're doing.
I think the edit needs to be, you know, you when you're talking about being assertive, and it's just, you know, a British flag, because that's what we do. We go around
Or just
asserting
like
ourselves in the world.
every time you talk, I just immediately cut the clip and it goes back to me.
I think that's fair and right, honestly.
Also, just as a
Um,
group, I'm having a really good hair day today. Like, I'm feeling really good about this. Your
um,
hair's the same every day.
I'm going grey, I think.
Oh, fun.
Somewhere.
So's Tanner.
I
He's been
don't
going
know.
grey for a while.
It's been a
Hmm.
very stressful year.
Yeah. Yeah, big year for
Yeah,
you. All
big
right. Well,
year,
what
big
other
things.
questions do people have?
Well,
Agony
I've given you
uncle.
one from my audience, so I would like one from your audience, please,
Oh, you're
Samantha.
wanting to do a back and forth situation? Yeah, sure. All
Make
right.
sure our
Thank you.
audiences are equally served by this exchange.
I imagine in my head that your audience is like older and a bit more respectable and maybe like more recently out of Mormonism, and mine and Tanner's is people with like ADHD and autism.
Yours, feral.
Who ours
Let's
is
put it
like all bisexual ADHD. I'd be
feral.
curious to hear your answer to this. Do you still, or did you for a time, have a knee jerk reaction to pray when something unexpected happened, like finding out you're being let go at work or learning a loved one had a medical emergency? And when you remember that isn't something that works like you once thought, what do you do instead? I've never really had the knee jerk reaction to pray at any point in my ex Mormon journey.
Did you ever have the knee-jerk reaction to pray while you were Mormon,
Oh,
or
definitely.
was it
Yeah.
a planned out, thought out thing?
There was one time when I just passed my driving test. I was like 17 and I hydroplaned on going onto a roundabout too fast and my car spun around 2 times and I out
Mhm.
loud was like, "Dear Heavenly Father, please protect me." And then like I like immediately said a prayer and then I was fine.
Nice.
So
Worked? Can't prove it didn't.
what about you? Was it hard for you to lose your relationship to prayer?
So that came more recently than anything else that I lost. But yeah, I think I've
As
had
in
some
like the
experiences.
grief came more recently?
Oh no, as
Oh,
in the losing the knee jerk reaction to pray.
oh, so you have
Um,
had it up until recently, you're
mm.
saying?
I would
Mm.
pray up until recently,
Did
but
you
then
believe that that God was there listening, or was it just sort of a habit?
it was a sort of agnostic thing. It was a bit of I don't know, but
Give it a
let's
go.
keep giving it a go, seeing what's happened. Then you nearly die, and you realize, yeah, this no one's coming to save me actually. So maybe this isn't going to work out.
Well, you
Um,
didn't die. When I thought I was potentially dying in the Costa Rican jungle in
mhm.
2024, I was so down bad that I said a prayer on the bathroom floor.
Wow.
Not necessarily because I thought, I don't know. I have a lot of sort of I don't know. My sense of spirituality is such that if I felt like saying a prayer just sort of for my own neurological experience, I would do it. I mean, I wouldn't be
Mm,
addressing Mormon God, but there's times where
yeah.
I'm sort of prayer like in my like internal utterings.
Because well, I guess what we're talking about here is the desire to pray to try and fix a situation or to try and gain help, right? That
Mm,
is that knee jerk reaction. And so I think I've done a lot of work on realizing my helplessness generally in the world, and recognizing that often it is far more effective to change our reaction to the world than trying to change the world around us.
yeah.
And realizing that actually, begging and pleading with the deity isn't going to change anything.
Yeah.
But thinking or reframing a situation is probably more helpful.
Yeah. I mean, what I love about a lot of Eastern spirituality, specifically like I suppose Zen Buddhism, Taoism, is
Hmm.
that it really emphasizes making yourself okay with difficult
Hmm.
circumstances, not in a way that makes you become passive or apathetic to like injustice, but yeah, really realizing in a lot of situations like what is within my ability to control and what isn't.
Hmm.
And for the stuff that isn't, how can I bring a sense of acceptance to the situation? Because we really do waste a lot of like mental and general energy sort of fighting with reality in our heads. And I
Mm.
think sometimes prayer obviously can be useful or unhelpful. I think it becomes unhelpful when it is almost it's almost assisting with you fighting against reality because you're thinking
Hmm.
like, oh, I can get God to change this, when actually I think it's a sort of more mature sense of spirituality to be like, how can I make peace with my circumstances,
Hmm.
because it's only from that place that you can really like affect change or have an idea of what you even can do, blah 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 blah
Mm.
blah.
And it's that kind of understanding, I think, in this past year or so that kind of killed my sort of belief in an interventionist God. The idea that, if my prayer is never going to be as sincere and as heartfelt and as desperate as people that have gone through much worse things than I've ever gone through, and they weren't helped. So even if you do believe in an interventionist God, which I don't, you heard it here first. If you do believe in an interventionist God, you must at some point understand that you're not in control of whether he intervenes or not. And no amount of praying will make him intervene or not intervene. So stop asking and start, I guess, looking within as to how you can better cope with the situation and better accept what it is that's going on.
Yeah, I suppose prayer really is just providing people with the illusion of control. And again, that's where I see, like, I think useful spiritual paradigms are those that like make us more able to surrender to the things we can't control, because I feel like our obsession with needing to control things gets us locked into bad thinking in all kinds of ways, like, you know, like interpersonal relationships, spiritually, philosophically, politically, like in so many ways. Like the need for control, which is like really adjacent to the need for certainty, gets us in a lot of trouble and like limits our thinking. And something else, this is just a tangent now, but something I do when things get really rough is I will say sort of to myself or write in my journal or sort of imagine I'm saying to the universe, show me how it gets better. And then
Mhm.
and just sort of the act of like writing that down, asking it hypothetically to the all that there is, then it primes my brain to look for like how it gets better. And I feel like that is sort
Mm.
of like a form of prayer that is always, in my experience, answered, because like every experience is temporary.
Well, and I think what you're doing there is essentially you're training your focus then on the ways in which it can get better, and you'll start looking for those things, because we're very good at
Yeah.
looking for what we want to look for out of life generally. So if you're looking for the positives just by asking the universe to show you how it gets better, then you're going to be looking for how it gets better, and you're more likely to see it or to formulate it within your mind, I would imagine.
Show me how I can make $100,000.
And then we get into the realm of manifesting, and we start to,
Yeah,
starts to
that's a
lose
whole
lose touch
fucking.
with reality a bit there. But no, I think there's some good points there, and I hope that was helpful, dear listener, that sent in that question.
Hope we solved all your prayer-based problems. Most of these
I,
are really just going to be us rambling about
that's fine.
whatever topic has come across our desk.
Well, someone said to me, not sure what kind of dilemmas you mean, but the snacks keep running out. How do you deal with this dilemma as a snack enthusiast?
Just like generally in life, the snacks keep running out, not as a
Yeah.
consequence of leaving the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
No, just in general. Apparently, this person is having a difficult time with the snacks running out.
That can be tough.
Insufficient snackage.
Again, sometimes it's a case of acceptance, and sometimes you have to be like, especially in these economic times, you have to be like, I don't need a snack. And it's okay for me to be a little bit uncomfortable. It's okay for me to have a craving and not meet it. But then there's other times when it's like, I'm capable of going out and acquiring more snacks, and it's okay for me to do that. And I don't need to demonize pleasure.
Sometimes, because I have a deeply unhealthy relationship with food, I will run to go and get the snacks, so I feel as though I've earned them.
Do you have a deeply unhelpful
No, I
healthy
don't.
relationship with food? Okay.
I'm fortunate that I do have a healthy relationship with
I was gonna
food.
say, you seem quite normal, balanced.
Yeah. I am someone that snacks a lot. John Delin has outed me as a snacker before, and I snack more healthily now. I've made some lifestyle changes in the past year. Not that I ever felt I was particularly unhealthy, but
No.
I have increased my healthiness to a level that some may view as obsessive. But
Do you
there we
still
are.
eat jammy dodgers though?
Well, that's the thing. I ate some at Christmas.
Yeah.
Hadn't eaten some
You're like, had another
months
stroke.
before then. Like, yeah, exactly. It's the jammy dodgers that were doing it. No shade to
No.
Burton's Biscuits Company, but yeah, I've cut down on things like that massively.
Well, it doesn't hurt to cut back on jammy dodgers as long as you're not completely
Not the
depriving
amount
yourself.
I was eating,
Really?
because my problem was, like, I say I don't have a bad relationship with food, and I don't. But what I do find is if I start eating something, I do struggle to be like, okay, right, I've had a couple of these, I'm going to put them away. Because if they're in the house, I'm like, but I'm going to get hungry
They're
again.
hyper
And I just,
palatable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's not entirely my fault. I feel like that's the fault of the food in part for being borderline addictive.
Yeah, they make it that way. Are you a big snacker because you don't have like because meals are harder for you, or do you also like is it separate from having 3 meals?
I just snack a lot, even though I eat 3 meals, because I do move a lot
I was
day
gonna
to
say
day.
you're doing a 5K every day,
Yeah, not quite every day, but yeah. I
quite
like
quite
after
constantly.
this recording tonight, I'll go out and I'll run for about an hour for
About an
banter.
hour.
Yeah,
That's more
we'll
than a
see.
5K.
It'll probably be about 10 or 11, maybe. My
Really
10K
impressive.
time's like 52 minutes, so I could probably then get another couple of I might get 12 in an hour, maybe. We'll see.
12Ks, you guys. Thanks
Yeah,
for inspiring us.
it's all right. It's
I
all right.
know
Well, Sam, you and I famously, we can put footage on screen now, ran a 5K together.
5K completers, both of
Indeed.
us. Yeah.
You were ranked.
I held Nemo back quite a bit in the rankings, but it's the friends we make along the way, isn't it?
It is, and I had a great time. I had a
Me
great
too.
time cheering
Me
you
too.
on.
These are all quite big topics, but some of my own ex Mormon challenges currently are nihilism, sexual shame slash aversion, and dreams I'm still Mormon or pretending to be.
Ooh,
I'm going to start with the dreams one because it's the easiest to tackle. I
cool.
don't see that as a challenge. If you're having dreams that you're still Mormon, that's just your psyche working this all out. Like, I don't think that's a problem to be solved. That's probably just your psyche adjusting to a
Write
new
the dreams
reality.
down.
Yeah, I do think dream work is interesting. And I don't think it's as woo woo as it's been painted to be over the years. I mean, I'm not someone who's like, oh, the presence of this color or animal in a dream means this specific thing. But I do just think it's interesting what kind of problems your brain is trying to wrestle with, figure
Well,
out,
yeah,
practice in your dreams.
because dreams are formed of your subconscious. They're formed of things. You cannot dream of something that you haven't either thought of or experienced, right? You can't
Mm.
dream of something that you're. I don't think you can. Is it possible to dream of something that you've not experienced or at least imagined?
I think it's possible that your brain could like encounter new scenarios that it's never thought of before because
But those scenarios
it
will
can
be
put
made up
things
of
together in
constituent
new
parts.
ways.
Yeah, yeah. But they'll be made up of constituent parts that already exist within your mind, right?
Yeah, like it's like it's stuff that would already have to be in there. But a
Because
lot of
even if
things
you
are in
encounter a
there that you might not
go on.
know were in there.
Because even if you encounter a stranger in a dream, it could be someone that you've seen and you've not consciously
I
tagged
always
that
hear
they're
that.
an image in your head.
I guess for me, like people's faces in dreams aren't fleshed
Mhm.
out enough to where that seems relevant anyway. So I never
Yeah,
know if that's true. But
interesting. I dream people's faces quite vividly in dreams.
Are you good at
Hmm.
art?
No. Sorry, before we go to that, I guess the point I was trying to make there was like I don't think it is woo woo to pay attention to what happens in your dreams because your
No.
brain is processing information. It's all, I think, information that you have either consciously or subconsciously brought on board. And it's all concepts that are in there. So just let your brain work it out.
Well said. In terms of sexual shame slash aversion, I mean that could be a whole video on its own. I do think, I mean, if shame and aversion is sort of the issue, like allowing yourself to get in touch with your own eroticism with no expectations or
Mhm.
just like starting to like take stock, I guess, take inventory of like what you find erotic, sexy. You say slash aversion, so I'm not sure whether that is talking about that could mean a few things. Like I know sometimes like women who got married while Mormon, they will not want to have sex, for example. And that's like a whole sort of that's like its own thing to unpack. I think like the with any sexual thing, I think it just all ultimately is going to be about like again acceptance, just being like
Mhm.
this is how I am at this moment in time and I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to be different, certainly not for someone else. I mean, you could hire a sex therapist like Natasha Helfer Parker or a coach. I feel like sexual shame is something that comes up a lot with my coaching clients, and we're always kind of unpacking and trying to come up with new sort of approaches that feel right for people in terms of how to tackle it. Yeah, sorry, it's such a big topic. It's hard to just
Mm.
do like a quick uh,
It's all right. We've
answer.
got
But
time.
tell me your experience. Like, did you
No one is
feel
waiting.
like your relationship to sex changed once you realized Mormonism wasn't true? Like, I know every Mormon has some degree of sexual shame in there, generally speaking, but how did it shift as you left Mormonism?
I don't know that it did particularly. That I had a thought regarding, dealing with the sort of shame. And I've been trying hard recently to be more sort of present And there is a recognition, I suppose, when it comes to acceptance, that you can't be any different than you are in the present moment, I guess, because everything that's happened to you has led up to the moment that you exist in. You might be able to be different in the next moment, and you might be able to make plans as to how that might happen, or you might be able to, you know, set out a strategy so that the next time you're confronted with this scenario, things are different. But there's no way in which realistically things could have been any different in the moment you're in right now when you're feeling that shame, because you didn't take any steps before, because you didn't know to take any steps before. There's no moralizing that. There's no need to feel bad about that. All you can do is accept where you are, recognize what you might like to be different, and then perhaps put things in place to try and
Mm.
make them different.
Another thing that's just tough with sex and leaving Mormonism is the way that people had to go from really 0 to 100 when they got married. And then I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's typical that people will be in a marriage when they leave Mormonism. And then you're kind of in such a weird spot because it's like you're in this relationship where, in theory, you know, your sexuality is a regular part of your life and
Mm-hmm.
relationship and, you know, should kind of already be set up for success. But obviously, that's not often how it goes. I think there's a degree to which you got to let yourself like go back to basics a lot of the time, even if you're in a situation where you might feel like, for example, sex is like kind of required, like a marriage. Let yourself go back to basics, strip everything away, and just give yourself the time to be like, let me sort of like build this block by block from like a true place. Like, let me actually see what like is for me. And yeah, I'm
Well,
speaking very
because
broadly here, but
yeah, most other people or people outside of this sort of situation, outside of a Mormon situation or other religious situation, will bring with them a sense of their own sexual identity to a marriage, and then they will see
mm,
how that engages with the other person's. Whereas you end up kind of forming your sexual identity in the presence of another person, and so
which is
it can be
very
hard to
hard.
tell how
Yeah.
much is you and how much is just pleasing them, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I do think if you're already locked into a marriage by the time you leave the church, that there has to be some degree of sexual differentiation. And I'm not saying you have to like open up your marriage or get divorced or anything like that, but typically you there needs to be some kind of effort to be like, okay, we're each like autonomous sexual beings who are like figuring out our relationship to our own sexuality separate from each other. I think if you are always trying to do it within the constraints of like we are a couple that needs to maintain our sexual relationship, I think you just there's data you're not going to be able to collect, and sometimes it's frightening to do like an honest data collection process because you're like, what might this mean for my marriage if I don't come to this specific conclusion? But I think if you really want to live a life that is true to yourself, you have to be willing to go there. I mean, or you can like try and run from it, try and avoid it, but you'll pay the price. There's no real like running from truth.
We should always run away from our emotions.
Yeah.
I think that is what's required in most scenarios. In fact, definitely.
And in terms of nihilism, I feel like you should follow Britt
Mm,
Hartley at No Nonsense Spirituality because that's kind
yeah.
of her specialty. But the way I look at it is that nihilism, you know, the void, that space of sort of nothingness where meaning has been lost and you don't know what's going to replace it yet. I think it's very easy to be scared of that zone for obvious reasons because like absence of meaning can be scary. But I think it's like it's important to recognize the value of the void and the value of that space of nihilism, which is ideally temporary, because it's like that's where the most potential sort of exists, like is that nothingness. Like because when there's nothing, anything could happen. And I think that is, you know, so many people like cling to ideologies their whole lives, including like sort of relationships and jobs and things like that, because they are afraid of the void. But the void is such an important part of a healthy life because we do at times need to come back to that space of like everything sort of being on the table or nothing being on the table. Then that creates space for anything to theoretically be on the table. You see what I'm saying?
I have nothing to add to the nihilism thought. I don't think, because it's never something I've really struggled with.
Hmm. You're like, I just became a YouTube star. And that kind of.
That filled my void.
But you do seem
No,
like someone that's naturally good at I mean, even just like thinking about your commitment to running all the 5Ks, it's like you seem pretty good at finding things that speak to you and integrating them into your routines.
I'm just I honestly think I'm just too stubborn. I would be, once I've decided no, I want to live, then that's it, right? Or there's no nihilism that's gonna be like, oh, but it's meaningless.
Yeah. It's like, well,
So
it's
all
too
right.
much effort to kill myself. So what do
Yeah,
I
there's
want to
not quite
do?
apathy
For
in
me,
that
it
way.
is. For
All
me, it's
right,
an apathy question.
I see. It's just too much effort to off yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cowardly, lazy, also attached to my loved ones.
Yeah. I just find that my gut response, and I think I've spoken about how lucky I am that this is the case. But my gut response to things is, okay, so what next?
Mm.
And what next is incompatible with there not being anything next. And so when I'm there about to die, whenever that happens, whether it's expected or unexpected, I will probably still be going, oh, I wonder what's next.
That's very zen of you. Very naturally
Oh.
zen.
Which is nice. It's a nice, and it's very lucky and unfortunate that that's kind of how my brain works.
Yeah, we're so different.
Um,
I mean, that's the mindset I strive for, though, is just being like open to the experience of life. Let's see what it has for me.
mm.
But I fully relate to nihilistic despair. So,
And it absolutely doesn't mean that I don't, when things don't happen the way that I thought they would, that I'm not upset about it or
yeah,
sad about it. And I think you could get really Buddhist about it and think, well, it was my fault for having expectations. If I'd not created expectations, I wouldn't have created my own misery. But to an extent, because I'm like, what's next? I then plan things out, and when they don't go the way I would like them to, that is upsetting, of course.
yeah, I do think expectations. You got to be kind of careful there. It's like you want to
Mm.
you want to shoot for what you want, and then also be like
But
I
it's
even will
okay
feel
if it
this like
doesn't
if I'm about
work
to go
out.
on like a really good trip that I'm really excited for. I'm like,
Mhm.
seems pretty statistically likely that I'm going to go on this trip. But I try to be someone who's never in the mindset of just like assuming that things that I'm planning will happen, because it's like you never truly know. And I never
Uh,
want to be in a situation where like I can't adapt quickly in
mm.
a situation where my expectations aren't met. But
I
yes,
feel
I
like
too feel
sometimes
the crushing weight of expectations not being met.
sometimes I'm quite well aligned to say that, I expect that things will just work out for me and go well. That is kind
Mm.
of my default position. And when they don't, most of the time, I can be like, okay, well, it didn't. So how can I make something of it still? But that's not always an immediate thing for people. It's certainly not always immediate for me. Sometimes there is that moment where you have to sit in the, oh, I am actually quite disappointed this didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And I've learned in this sort of non-resistance theme that we're talking about a little bit, is I've learned to just accept that it's going to take a moment to come through it and to work out, let all that out, sit, cry, do whatever I need to do, and then be like, okay, cool. So this thing isn't happening. What does that present me an opportunity to do instead, or whatever
Yeah,
it might be? Yeah.
so healthy, Nemo. Last year, I really got into the Stoic concept of negative visualization, which is basically not in a morose way, but just accepting that like a lot of different things can happen in life. And I mean, a number of bad things are sort of inevitable in life. Like you
Hmm.
are going to lose people you love, you are going to experience sickness, and
Hmm.
injustice and all that. And I do think there is something useful about negative visualization, not in the sense that you're like just expecting everything to go badly all the time, but in the sense that you recognize that like difficult things can and will happen. And like you shouldn't ever get sort of so comfortable without, lives of relative comfort, that you forget that. So that if you find yourself in a situation where something, doesn't go according to plan, or even like a lower level situation where you're not able to control life the way that you kind of go through life generally thinking that you can, it doesn't just like throw you off completely
Hmm.
and render you unable to cope. I wrote a Substack post on that. So if that's a topic that interests you, it's called The Power of Negative Visualization.
I don't like these questions where it's like, if you could change something, what would you change? Because we can't. We can draw attention to things. We can protest against things. We can push back against things, but we can't actually change them because often the levers of power aren't in our hands to do so.
And it's very easy to think, I mean, obviously there's things we could say that we would like to change, but it's very easy to forget that every a lot of stuff has unintended consequences, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it can seem like such a slam dunk if we just change this one thing, but that can have knock-on effects. I feel like the theme of this
Mm-hmm.
episode is is so zen, and just like being able to bring that kind of equanimity to life.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Which is strange, given that certainly my channel is based around fact checking the leaders and being like, right, so what are you saying versus what was actually the case, and blah blah blah. You know, we're talking on Sunday about the things that Oak said about dating on your mission, which is
Yeah,
just a
are you
complete
allowed to date
no
on your
go.
mission now? Like, what was that quote?
Well, the problem is now it's unclear,
Because they
and
used to be like, guard your heart, you know, really see,
uh-huh.
do not date on the mission. And now he's like, some people meet their spouse on their mission, and that's fine as long as it's not too early on. Like, what?
So it's like, right, I want to know how early on is too early on. I want to know what meeting your spouse on your mission looks like, whether it's
Yeah.
just, oh, I now know a person exists and I just hope that I'm close enough to them when I get back to Utah to
Yeah.
then date them, or whether it's like, oh, I'm allowed to kind of flirt a little bit, or be like, oh, get to know each other a little bit, or just have a meaningful conversation, which having a meaningful conversation with a sister missionary as an elder wasn't really allowed
Yeah.
because it could lead to other things, right? You had to keep things very professional, very above board. So how are you going to meet your future spouse? Well, I guess any two people who focus on Jesus can get married. Isn't that the saying?
So
So maybe
true.
that's what's coming in and doing the heavy lifting. They're not
Mm.
expecting you to actually form any sort of meaningful connection. It's just
Yeah, I
bluntly a
guess.
bunch of horny 18 and 19-year-olds.
Great time to just commit to someone for life.
Mm,
Really highly
great time.
recommend. My brother and I both recently had babies. He and his wife are planning when the baby blessing will be for their baby, and it's just making me mourn all the Mormon rituals my son won't be a part of.
Mm,
That makes sense, especially if
it
you're
does.
watching your family prepare for it. And it's hard because like my instinct is to start talking about how yes, rituals are really important, and so we have to sort of create new rituals for ourselves. But I understand that it's not quite the same when you're like, oh, all of the rest of my family is like bought into this ritual that I'm not a part of anymore. And you know,
Mm,
even if you create your own rituals, there's not necessarily going to be buy-in from your family, so it's not going to be quite the same.
yeah, they're not going to buy into you pride rocking your baby, like finding somewhere out in Utah and lifting them up and being like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Pride rocking. I was like, I
Pride
wonder what
rocking,
that
yeah.
means. I thought you were making
Yeah.
like an ally. I didn't know what that
Uh,
meant.
the community can have it if they like, but I was really talking about Lion King.
You like rock the baby and everyone is like, may you be gay.
Yeah. Pride rock the baby. I mean, that's also a ritual. You should get all your gay friends around,
Whatever's
pass the
speaking
baby
to
around.
you.
Unfortunately, rituals can be deeply set and ingrained, and the secularization of certain religious rituals has been, or it is possible. So, for example, in the UK, you can still have your child christened and not be a particular religious person, and it not set them up with any sort of particular religious pressure, but it's a way to engage in sort of a traditional ritual. The problem with Mormonism is it doesn't it so tightly gatekeeps its traditions that in order for you to engage with them, you have to then essentially, if you were to be like, oh well, I'll get my child blessed, even though we don't believe, we'll still go on a Sunday, we'll still have a blessing circle, that's fine. But no, because that generates a membership number for your child, that puts their names on the records, that creates an expectation that they'll be baptized when they're 8, that
Mm.
sets up an expectation that they're going to be tithe payers as adults, they'll be hounded for the rest of their lives, they'll be counted towards membership numbers. It's
And
not
how
the same.
meaningful is it if you know that the whole
Yeah.
thing's, but that's the thing.
Well, because it can
Rit-
be a chance to bring family together, right?
yeah, I do understand that like a ritual is meaningful for two reasons. It's like the community aspect, which is
Mhm.
the tough thing. But it's also like, yeah, a ritual is going to be better if it's meaningful and feels real to you. So you do have an opportunity. I mean, it is hard, especially if you've recently left Mormonism. Maybe you haven't built up like your sort of chosen family yet. You don't have like a community of people
Mhm.
to do rituals with. But if you have a partner that you've had a baby with, then it can just maybe start with you two. And yeah, I think you use the word mourn in the comment, and I'm like, yeah, there is just a degree of mourning and grief that is going to come from losing that. But as with everything, it's like you have lost but you will also gain. And
Mhm.
so just try and keep that in mind, that like there's even more to be gained from the loss than
Well,
just what you've lost.
yeah, because if you've chosen to disassociate yourself from the institution, it's because you disagree with it in some way. I'm sure apathy isn't a very common reason for people leaving. It's not as common as church apologists and defenders of the faith might have you believe, anyway. So what you've got then is the ability to look and say, right, so yes, it's sad that everyone's going to be celebrating my nephew or niece, but they're not going to be celebrating my child in the same way, and that's sad. But
Mm.
you can celebrate the life ahead that your child could have outside of the institution that you've chosen no longer to associate with. You can
Mm.
celebrate the future that they will hopefully have, and the freedoms that they'll have, and the ways in which they'll be able to live their life that you maybe weren't able to have. And I'm not saying you should live vicariously through your children, because that never leads to healthy things. But just
Or
stopping to appreciate what it is they will have.
yeah. Yeah, because it is ultimately about them, not about you. Even though it's like, yes, we all deserve to like feel celebrated and
Mm.
supported when we have children, obviously, and but yeah, I don't know. You of it,
Find a way to celebrate your kid. Just
yeah.
find
And
a
you
way.
can hire me and Nemo to come to wherever you are, and we'll do a blessing and sort of a choreographed dance, and that could be something special.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
the dance is extra, but yeah,
the dance is extra
because we have to spend time learning it.
because it takes us a long time.
We're not naturally coordinated people.
No. And Nemo is he's
And
petulant
what's
when you're teaching him choreo. He's petulant.
just interesting. Yeah, I am. Someone said, "What can parents do to help support their children on the journey out of Mormonism? I know I've apologized to my now adult children on many occasions, but it feels like peeling an onion. We keep discovering new layers of crazy. What would be helpful
Yeah.
for children to hear? What would be useful for parents to know?"
I mean, I think if you're a parent that's already like recognizing things that were harmful and apologizing for them, that is like huge. The fact that your kids, presumably based on that, know that they could come to you and be like, hey, remember like that way that you parented us? That was like really bad. And the fact that you'll listen and take it in and then be like, ah, sorry, yeah, I see how that was down. That to
Mhm.
me is it. I'm like, you're already
That's like
doing a
top
great job.
1% right there.
Yeah, like that is
Yeah.
not happening with most parents. I can tell you that.
Nope.
So you're probably already doing an amazing job. I think it sounds like maybe it would be useful for you to sort of forgive yourself as well and remember that, like, everyone's just acting out their own
Mhm.
conditioning and you don't want to be too hard on yourself. If you're,
Yeah,
as long as
operating
you're,
under the best information you had.
yeah, exactly. You're already doing what you can. So try not, there's not going to be some perfect endpoint where you've like apologized enough to like, I think maybe you're like, this is just a guess, but maybe you're carrying some amount of shame that you don't need to be carrying. And it's okay to let it go while recognizing that, yeah, you'll probably still be learning things that, you wouldn't do now with
Mhm.
the information you now have. But you don't have to like carry shame for a certain period of time before you're allowed to let it go. Like, as long as based on what you're saying, it sounds like you're fine.
Yeah, you also just can't undo what was done.
Yeah.
And it sounds like everyone in that situation kind of recognizes that that's the case. So it's a good opportunity to move forward, and you can view this as opportunities to learn lessons moving forward. You can, without a sense of self-deprecation, be very willing to say things like, "Oh, well, we did this, but we wouldn't recommend that now with what we know." So with your own children, perhaps try assuming your children are going to have children. Yeah, grandparentage is the second slice at parentage. Parentage is the word. It's that second go around, and there's a reason that grandparents often behave very differently to parents, and it's because I think whether they consciously or subconsciously
Atonement.
recognize that, yeah, they're like, "Oh, we did things as parents that we wouldn't necessarily do now." And there's that common trope of kids going, well, when I was a kid, you'd never get away with that, and then grandparents are letting kids get away with all sorts, right? That's a very glib example, but I think it's just Mormonism or not, as people age, they realize that they didn't do things perfectly. None of us do things perfectly, and one of the best way, all you can really do, is be open in the conversation so that it might be avoided. But then, who is it that said everyone's going to mess up your children? So, like,
Yeah.
no one parents perfectly.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just that they always know that you love them and that you apologize for mistakes when you
Mhm.
can. Even saying like
That's already great.
everyone messes up their children is like
Mhm.
something in me balks at that phrasing because
Go
I'm
on,
like,
push back.
no, I mean, I get the sentiment, that
Yeah.
no one's a perfect parent. And,
Mhm.
but then I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like I have friends who had honestly healthy childhoods, some of them who are Mormon, because they always felt loved. They always felt like they could, generally be themselves without being shamed. Like I'm like, there are parents that do a good job, and it's like
Mhm.
it's just the fact that being a human is challenging. So there's no perfect way to prepare kids for that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
oh, my mum's trying to FaceTime me.
Ah, speak of the devil. Wouldn't that be great? Should we have her on the show?
No. In a meeting with Nemo. Is it
You
urgent?
described this as a meeting. How
I don't
grand.
want her to watch my YouTube channel. As we were just talking about shame, one of the questions I got was what steps are involved with integrating shame. Step one is go to samanthashelleycoaching.com and
Mhm.
book a session with me. But
The second step is to be like me and not have shame.
are you shameless?
Pretty shameless, yeah.
I'm building quite the case for you being a narcissist.
What my Zen approach to life.
Yeah, it's like Ron Swanson, just like naturally psychologically healthy in a way that people strive to be, or psychopath.
Well,
No.
I just don't. For a lot of times, I'm like, I'm never gonna see a person again. I don't really
Oh,
care.
couldn't be
But
me.
other times, I think, is it really that embarrassing?
And
Is
for
it?
me, the answer is always yes. And it's even more embarrassing than I probably realize.
So for example, when I went hiking in the Peak District last year, I met a couple of Canadians. Which, if you've now found out what I do for a living because I was vague with them, and you found me here, hi. But I met a couple of Canadians, and the way I met them was I had sat down at a table and I had gone up to the bar to order food. I'd taken the menu with me, and it was like a little single table. And this Canadian girl walked in, sat down on the table I was going to sit at. So I went back because she was looking for a menu I'd ordered. I went, "You'll probably need one of these. I was going to sit here, but I can find someone else unless you mind if I join you." And she was like, "No, that's
That
fine."
is
We sat
bold.
down,
I would
we
never.
chatted, and then her friend turned up, and the three of us went hiking the next day. And it was great.
Gorgeous.
Because what's the worst that
I
happens?
love
She
that.
goes, "Oh yeah, no, I'd like to eat on my own or whatever." I'm like, "Fine, I go find another table."
See, I'm like,
I-
something healthy was happening in your childhood for you to become like that. That was not
Yeah,
happening in mine. I do
yeah,
think
sorry.
steps involved in integrating shame. I mean, this is like my favorite topic ever, so I could again go on about this for 2 hours.
That's right.
But I mean, the main thing is just to identify it, I suppose, and to identify the story that is attached to it.
Mhm,
And generally speaking, it's like those stories are going to be not true, and but also at some point like served a survival purpose. Like your brain is thinking that the shame is protecting you in some way, either
mhm.
from like repeating something traumatizing that's happened to you in the past, or I guess from experiencing new traumas. But it's like your shame is just like a misguided protective instinct, and you got to just sort of start unpacking it, start identifying the stories, sit with like the feeling of shame in your body. That's something that is often not talked about enough, although I feel like there's starting to be more talk about this. It's like there's so many problems where we just try to intellectualize our way out of them, but you really do have to like somatically release them or feel them.
I really like the idea of sort of addressing the stories that we tell ourselves and identifying them and kind of asking myself, okay, what is the story I'm telling myself here about how this should go or how I should be or how others might perceive me? So, for example, with that approach at the table where I was like, just asking if I could sit with someone, I could tell myself a story about a prevailing narrative whereby women do not like to be approached by men and they will automatically view me as creepy and horrible and blah blah. I could properly incel myself, or I could be like, no, I'm politely asking if I could join someone to eat, and if they say no, I will respect it and walk away. If they have a problem, that's them. They've read far too much into a situation, or they've got their
Mm-hmm.
own baggage, which means they're particularly uncomfortable with a stranger coming up and talking to them. I'm not going to make them feel bad about it. Not going to make them feel shame about it, but
Yeah.
that's down to their story that they're telling themselves about what's going on.
Yes.
But I choose not to buy into unhelpful stories that are divisive and try and paint broad groups of people as hating other broad groups of people. I just find those generally unhelpful in life.
And even if you have done something that you genuinely regret and that you think was wrong, you just have to, and this goes for with other people as well, you just have to recognize, like, okay, well, what was the headspace I was in at the time? What were the factors that led to me choosing that? It's never, if you're someone who's thinking about this stuff, the ultimate truth is never just that you're bad and you suck. It's like, you know, even if you were like reactive or selfish, it's like, okay, why were you like under-resourced in such a way that you felt like you had to be selfish? You know, like there was clearly a story in that moment telling you, like, I have to be selfish to survive in some way, or, you know, there's always an amount of breaking down that can be done. I feel like if you break anything down enough, shame is never going to be the base reality. Like the story that shame is telling is never going to be the most like helpful data set.
Well, I think about times last year where I was perhaps more anxious than I would have liked to have been. But even that is me telling myself a story about how anxious I ought to be and about how I ought to maintain this position that I've kind of presented with you talking here about my sort of general reaction to bad situations and difficult situations, is to look forward. And so when I don't do that, I could make that 10 times worse by actually becoming frustrated and telling myself, oh no, I'm now no longer living up to my view of myself as someone who doesn't struggle with this sort of thing. And then it just gets a lot worse. So removing that expectation from yourself as to like what you feel like you ought to be, and just accepting how it is that you feel at that time. Because telling yourself you ought not to feel shame is probably going to make it worse.
Yeah,
I would imagine.
it does. It really does.
So just being like, okay, right, I feel shame. And not a question of should I feel shame about this or shouldn't I, but more exploratory questions of why do I feel this way, or what things might have led me to feel this way. It's probably more helpful, I'd imagine. But as I said at the beginning of this is all nonsense that I'm rattling on, and I don't have any qualifications. So
you're like, I'm just kind of naturally mentally healthy, so I don't know, maybe just try being more like me.
Don't try and be like
it's
me.
Good that people have like the contrast between us. We're at an hour, so what do you say we say goodbye to people on YouTube here, and then we head to a bonus episode for Patreon where we answer a few extra questions, because I feel like an hour is a good stopping point. And one thing about Self on the Shelf is we are working on our Patreon this year. Nemo, thank you for being here on youtube.com with me.
Pleasure to open up my sort of emotional world to others and people to realize that I do have feelings. Although, as you said, allegedly, I might be a psychopath.
Yeah. It's always just good to hear a man's opinion on things, because I don't always go out of my way to seek it. So I like this. Yeah.
Pleasure to speak on behalf of all men.
And thank you once again for letting us be on your StreamYard Pro team. It's really made a difference to us. We are now able to stream in 1080p, which I just don't know how that was going to happen if you hadn't have.
How else were people going to see my pause?
Thank you all for being here. As we said, we're going to go extend this episode, answer some more questions for Patreon. So if you're enjoying this and you want to stay in this vibe with us, then join us over there. And we love you. And thank you for contributing, for being here. That's it. You're done.